Welcome to Election Recon's very first video update for the 2020 presidential general election. Today is Thursday, September 24th, 2020, and it is 40 days until Election Day. My name's Josh Whitfield, and I'll be your host for these video updates. We're going to try to bring you daily, Monday through Friday, alongside of a weekly podcast that will break everything down in more detail. But we're going to endeavor to make these video updates short, sweet, and to the point 5 days a week so we can share with you the model that we have put together here, which is going to forecast everything from who is going to be the next president all the way down to who is going to control state legislatures and governor's mansions across the country. Our model is going to look at, of course, who's going to be in charge of the U.S. Senate and who is going to run the U.S. House of Representatives as well. We want to stop and just take one moment to explain our model and our methodology and how we're going about trying to predict the election here in 2020. First and foremost, we want to be very clear that our very small team of 3 people working on this project, all of us do work in politics one way or another. None of us are using our personal data or opinions or political beliefs or our ideologies to drive our model. It's 100% third-party data-driven, 0% personal data or personal opinion driven. Our group of 3 is a bipartisan group of individuals, so there should be no concern that we're going to try to lean one way or the other. We want to give people a place where you can come and get some bias-free election talk and analysis and just get the facts as we see them in our model and in our projections. So we're very serious about that. And some days the model is likely going to shift one way or the other, right or left on the spectrum. We want to be very, 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 very clear that this is at 100% third-party data-driven, and we're just following where the model is taking us, not our personal opinions. Our includes combined pundit predictions and forecasts from respected prognosticators across the country like Cook, Silver, Sabato, and Gonzalez. Actual polling data collected from Real Clear Politics 538, the Virginia Center of Politics, NPR, Inside Elections, and other major media outlets. And it also incorporates economic and environmental factors specific to each election district or state, such as GDP, unemployment rate, crime rates, state-specific demographics, voting history and trends, industry specifics, endorsements, state-specific data on what the top 5 issues are in each election district or the state, and who the voters feel is best able to handle the task of those 5 issues. So it's generally just in layman's terms, in simple terms, it's about 1/3 raw poll data driven. It's about 1/3 driven by what we feel as election professionals is trending and how those trends affect regionally based on last like election cycles. So last presidential cycles, because not all election cycles are alike. So we try to look at presidential election cycles for presidential election cycles, if that makes any sense. And also the specific environmental and local factors at play in each district. So it's about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, those 3 things. So without further ado, because these videos are meant to be short, we're going to jump right into where our model's at, and we're going to get right into the big one, which is the presidential model and forecasts. And that's pretty much what we think everyone's probably tuning in for. And we've had a tremendous amount of new data since our last update, which was 20 days ago, which was 60 days out of the election. And our model back then had it 333 for Biden-Harris and 205 for Trump-Pence. Biden-Harris had 50.7% of the popular vote, and Trump-Pence had 47.9%, all other candidates making up the rest of that popular vote pie. But 20 days is 2 eternities. It is a whole eon in politics, and we have had earth-shaking changes in the election. Of course, first and foremost, the passing of the notorious RGB Supreme Court Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has passed away, leaving behind, her legacy is that she is the liberal lion of the court. I personally believe that the court was always at its best when the conservative lion Anton Scalia and the liberal lion Ruth Bader Ginsburg were going after each other in argument and decision. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, her death opens a vacancy that is going to be seismically impact this presidential election, and already has. Our model is incorporating that data as best we can, and so far early on, based on past trends of these last two Supreme Court fights with Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, our model is suggesting that there's a slight advantage to the GOP right now due to this vacancy. That may shift. It's still early on for that one, and that's certainly going to redefine the race as we move forward. In the last 96 hours, we've seen polling data in states like Florida and Arizona and Michigan that have buoyed Trump's numbers there, from reputable polling like ABC and the Washington Post poll. That is shifting our model a little bit. We are also seeing a voter registration spike in many battleground states for Republicans, most notably Florida, where Republicans have driven down the gap. Democrats usually enjoy a higher voter registration in many states, just like Florida, which is the nation's most prized swing state. But Republicans have, over the course of this election, beaten their Democratic counterparts, which is very surprising because normally Democrats have been king of the voter registration battle in recent election cycles. But we've been seeing a Republican increase in voter registration, or a decrease of the gap between Republicans and Democrats in battleground states like Florida, North Carolina, Iowa, and Michigan, and that shifts the model in favor of Trump and the Republicans in a significant way. So the debate obviously is going to affect the model and the polling, and there's going to be a lot of white noise still to come, and our model tries to negate knee-jerk reactions. So if someone gets a polling bump out of the debates, our model likely is not going to hold back from any knee-jerk reactions to any polling bump. That polling bump is going to have to be sustained over a course of time for our model to adjust on it. So just to kind of give you an idea of how our model works and looks at things when we run our simulations. But Reader's Digest on the presidential race has moved in favor of President Trump and the Republican ticket. Right now we have it 290 Biden-Harris, 248 Trump-Pence, with Biden at 50.2% of the popular vote, Trump-Pence at 47.3%. Joe Jorgensen has become the first third-party candidate in our model to come out over 1%, and so that's statistically significant enough that we've gone ahead and pulled her out of the other category, and she now stands alone. And we'll take a look at that because third-party candidates generally poll higher than their actual election results, and our model adjusts for that as well. So what we are saying here is this is not where Joe Jorgensen is polling at 1.3%. This is where we actually expect right now our model is predicting her to be at on Election Day. And then all other candidates around 0.2%. So that's how the popular vote shakes up for the presidential race. Moving on to the Senate. This is where it gets interesting. Despite the presidential map shifting a little bit into President Trump's favor, the Senate map has shifted over the last 20 days in our model to the Democrats. The Democrats, for the first time in our model, now are projected to control the United States Senate on Election Day. They have flipped over North Carolina. Incumbent Republican Tom Tillis now expected to lose to his Democratic challenger by a very slight margin. It has moved from tilt Republican to tilt Democrat. That's the only flip here in the state. However, several states have shifted away from the GOP and closer to the Democrats. States like South Carolina, which was once in our model a safe GOP state, now just a lean GOP state. Iowa and Montana, both lean GOP states in the last update, now tilt GOP states as those races are tightening up. In states that we've already projected Democrats to pick up, like Colorado and Maine, the Democratic Party is continuing to increase their lead in those two states. Republican Senator Susan Collins, who is a veteran out of Maine, a moderate Republican out of a blue state who has survived several elections, may not survive this one. Our model is suggesting that it is becoming increasingly difficult for her to close the gap. Republican Senator Cory Gardner in Colorado is drifting in the abyss, our model says, and we are very close to moving that race into the likely Democrat, not even the lean Democrat column. Democratic candidate Mark Kelly, who's challenging Republican Senator Martha McSally, continues to do very well in the polling, and he continues to do very well in our model. and we are close to moving that race into the lean Democratic column in our model. So just to give everybody kind of a heads up how we rate things, we have tilt, lean, likely, and safe. Tilt means that the candidates or the parties or the campaigns are within 1.5% of each other. 1.5% difference in the final projection when we run our simulations. Lean is 1.6% to 4% difference. Likely 4.1 to 7.9, and safe is 8% or greater. Obviously, because we would believe 8% in the projection would be well outside the margin of error for our model. So that's kind of how that breaks down. You can see the Senate map here. The Democrats favored to flip the current U.S. Senate, which has 53 Republicans. Their caucus favored to hold 51 seats. Of course, our initial run of the model actually had it at 50-50, and in that case, in case of a tie, whoever is the vice president, whoever controls the vice presidency, controls the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. It's going to be a nail-biter on election night who is going to control the U.S. Senate. Moving over to the U.S. House of Representatives, again, some contradictory shifts here. This is the first time in our models update that we've seen a kind of a shift in one aspect to one party and a shift in another aspect to another party. But the House of Representatives has shown some slight improvement for the Republican Party, and that's generally due to the generic ballot tightening up in polling just a little bit. But we do have a lot more local factors coming in as well. To note, out of California, 2 seats in our model have flipped from tilt Democrat back to tilt Republican, and that is the 25th California Congressional District, where Republican Mike Garcia is now favored to hold his seat he just won this year in a special election against Democratic State Assemblywoman Christy Smith. We expected that seat could shift back and forth all the way to our final projection. It's that tight. A race that is surprisingly not, or maybe not surprisingly to the folks that live down there, but in the California 21st Congressional District, we've seen a major shift from lean Democrat to tilt GOP, where former Congressman David Valadao, who just lost his seat in 2018 to current Congressman Democrat TJ Cox. It's a rematch from 2018. The old congressman we have, the Republican, now slightly favored to take his seat back in the California 21st. We have in the Minnesota 1st a move from tilt Democrat to tilt GOP. The Illinois 13th, the biggest mover on the map so far in any update. That moves from a very strong lean Democrat to a tilt GOP in our model. A lot of good data coming out of the Illinois 13th. That's the biggest mover and the biggest piece of good news so far for the GOP is these seats in blue states: California, Minnesota, Illinois. These are 4 congressional districts in deep blue states that are moving in the Republicans' favor in the election right now, according to our model. Also moving from tilt Dem to tilt GOP, the Iowa 2nd. So these 5 are the 5 shifts. There's been no flips from our last update, Republican to Democrat. However, all this good news for the Republicans here, to be sure, in our model, but we would be remiss if we did not point out that more seats, because we just talked to you about seats that flipped in our model, more seats moved in the favor of Democrats than did Republicans. In our model, 28 seats that we deem as less than safe. So likely, lean, or tilt. 28 seats for Democrats moved in the favor of Democrats. Only 12 seats for Republicans moved in that direction. So very interesting to see that despite some of these swing districts flipping over in our model, they're very razor close. The reality is we don't have time to go through all of them, that a much larger group of seats in our model have moved in favor of the Democrats despite these 5 Republican flips. So moving from the House, we're going to talk just very briefly here about the governor's races. Our model has not changed in 3 updates here. Basically, as you can see on the map here, the GOP is favored to win 8 of the 11 governor's races. The GOP is favored to win 8 of the 11 governor's races up in this election. They are favored to pick up 1 seat in Montana. Everyone else is just kind of holding pat on the party that they had previously elected. Our model predicts when the dust settles, Republicans will control 27 governor's mansions to Democrats controlling 23 governor's mansions in 50 states here across the country. Perhaps most interesting, and I don't know if how many other people are taking a look at this out there in the world, but our model is built out. We're looking all the way down at state legislature races in all 50 states. That has been a tremendous amount of time for us to build. So basically, our model currently projecting as of this update that Republicans will be in control, full control of 21 state governments to the Democrats' 15, with 14 being split. So that means at some level, whether that's the upper chamber, lower chamber, or the governor's mansion, there'll be some sort of split control between Republicans and Democrats in 14 states. 21 states, full across-the-board control of Republicans. 15 states, full across the control of Democrats. Why is that important? Because we're in the middle of a census. We're in the middle of a census, and when that census is over, whoever is in control of their local state legislatures next year, whatever party's in control, for the vast majority of states in the United States, they will redraw the legislative lines from coast to coast, border to border. House districts, state Senate districts, state legislative districts, you name it. They're going to redraw the map, which could determine control of the country for the next decade. Those lines will be in existence from 2022 all the way through 2030, those election cycles, unless a court throws them out for being unconstitutional. So incredibly, incredibly, incredibly important. We cannot stress that enough here, how important these state legislative races and governor's races are going to be to the future of the country. Taking a look at it and just wrapping up here to break it down. If we take away the governor's races and the governor's mansions, we take away those races, and we just look at control of the state legislatures themselves, the upper and lower chambers. And in instances like Nebraska, there's only one chamber, it's unicameral. But most states have an upper house and a lower house. Our model projects 29 state legislatures, both upper and lower chambers, to be in control of the Republican Party at the end of the election, based on the data we have now, to 20 in control of the Democrats, with only one split legislature being projected right now, and that is in the state of Minnesota, where our model projects the GOP to be in control of the upper house and the Democrats to be in control of the lower house. You want evidence for how ideologically divided we are as a country, even down to the state level. Think about that. Our model is only projecting one split control of a state legislature in all 50 states, and that's Minnesota. Well, that's going to be a wrap for this, the very first video update of Election Recon's election forecast. Again, I'm Josh Whitfield, and I'm going to be with you through these next 40 days, bringing you updates as we get them. These daily video updates, Monday through Friday, they're going to be shorter than the introductory video we just did for you today. We're going to bring you any new polling. We're just going to pretty much try to give you a daily Reader's Digest over the next 40 days till we come to a conclusion. Don't forget that we are going to be launching our podcast on Saturdays. This Saturday will be the first podcast, so look for that on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. And look in and here on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, or Instagram account. Follow us, like, and subscribe. Help us get off the ground here, launch this thing where we're really trying to provide something unique, a non-biased, just a straight-up expert insider's opinion on what's going on with the elections across the country with those of us that have put in over 10 years. All three of us working on this project, we've been in politics, we've been in elections for over 10 years, so we have some background, we know what we're talking about. Whether we're right or wrong, we don't know. Comment in the comment section below, tear us up, you're not going to hurt our feelings. We're just trying to provide this country at this time with a place where you can come and just get straight facts and third-party driven, nonpartisan analysis on what's going on with the election. This has been the first Election Recon election forecast update. I look forward to bringing you some more. Please stay with us throughout the election. And again, like and subscribe below. We'll see you next time.